My prayer for you is that you will know the joy of lasting and loving relationships. And for many people, that means marriage. And the joy of being a husband and wife is also filled with many challenges. And it's easy for that joy to get lost unless we know how to keep it alive. Also, in our news headlines, there was the caption that read of a couple that's known around the world, and they were announcing their separation after 40 years of marriage. Many people began to ask, if this couple can't sustain a marriage beyond 40 years, then who can? Well, God's promises make it possible for any of us to do that if we are willing to put His promises into play. Now, marriage is tough and nobody can hold a judgment over someone else. But as I've listened to the couples who've had these intimate, long-lasting marriages, here's what I've discovered. Plus, when Vicky's in my relationship with 34 years of marriage, that we may follow kind of what I'm calling the let's us rule. That in the husband and wife, let us live in love with God, who then will renew our love for each other. Let's love each other with passion, friendship, and commitment. Let's live by God's grace, who will sustain our marital love through His grace. Let's daily live our marriage vows. Let's be aware when we need to say to each other, I am sorry, and I forgive you. And then to say it to each other with our hearts. Let's daily have at least one heartfelt conversation. For a husband and wife to say, then let's develop at least one hobby and several shared interests that we can regularly pursue together. Let's honor each other's needs for times when we need to be alone and to have our space by ourselves. Let's also hold hands when we pray and walk. Let's also be aware when we're tempted. Let's help each other to grieve when we've experienced losses. Let's say to each other as often as we need to, I want to understand, but please help me understand what you're feeling and thinking. Let's respectfully know each other by our differences and talk through them in such a way that we can arrive at a heartfelt solution. Because the number one contribution to a divorce is a disagreement that's never resolved. It is never talked through with respectful love and care. Let's trust God and each other to find a way to say what's unsaid but needs to be said. And let's also agree that whenever the bedroom door is closed and it's just the two of us, that we will live in a way with each other that we don't need to be afraid because our hearts can trust each other. Let's live with a sense of knowing that our marriage can grow through the years, that what we have today may be good, but it can become great. Maybe it's tough, but it can become better. And that willingness then is to recognize that God has special ways for us to be able to work through the differences to get to the intimacy by how we're willing to trust each other. Let's pursue marriage counseling as a first resource when difficulties occur and not as a last hope. Let's stay connected to each other's youthfulness and the youthfulness of our love, which is the spring from which our mature love flows. And let's trust that God always has a way for us to move forward. In the area of our house where I get ready every day, there's a picture of Vicky, my wife, when she was a little girl, when she was a youth, the day that we married, and for who she is today. And a beautiful person at all those stages. And I realized I married that whole person, and that whole person continues to grow, and I'm to grow with her. And God has a way for each of us to know the uniqueness of our lives and the uniqueness of our relationships, for the uniqueness of our marriage to be intimate and lasting.